Good morning. Our speaker today was invited because several years ago I went to Hawaii and I went on my first kind of eco tour, boat tour. And it just so happened that when the tour announcers that this is our maiden tour, we're going out on a boat from Port Angeles, Washington. So Bob's and my ears peaked up. And it was a great adventure. It really was their first tour. It was the beginning of the season. It was a little bit wild, but we survived and had a great time. So I came home and I've been continuing to watch. And over time, there have been changes in the company, but I'm happy to have Perry Knudson here. He is the managing director of BRIX Marine, a Port Angeles designer builder of aluminum boats. The company's expertise lies in commercial, government, and recreational vehicles built to meet unique requirements. BRIX is a part of the Brighton Marine Group, together with All American, Duckworth, Eaglecraft, Kingfisher, and Wellcraft brands of aluminum boats. Recent notable accomplishments at BRIX include improvements to vessel construction and material handling, supported by an Murad Small Shipyard grant, as well as wet vessel deliveries to operators throughout Alaska and Hawaii. Perry attended George Fox University, playing on the Bruins baseball team, and graduating with a BA in Business Administration, International Business. He was born in Port Angeles, where he now lives with his wife and 4 sons. And we're glad you've returned home. It's always great when our locally born people return. To learn more about BRIX Marine, visit www.brixmarine.com. But here today, in person, Perry Knudson.
Thank you very much for having me this morning. It's always a pleasure to get an opportunity to see some faces that I recognize in the community, as well as others that I haven't had the pleasure of meeting yet. I love to share the story about what's going on in the mysterious blue buildings out on the highway. We still deal with quite a few people who learn about us because they go to places like Hawaii. They're like, wait, there's a boat builder back home where I come from. So it's always fun to be able to share what it is we're doing out there at BRIX Marine, formerly Armstrong, which I'll get into. Click to the next slide, please. I love your little anecdote, and that plays really well into where I kind of wanted to start this presentation, which is a little bit about like kind of what we believe at BRIX Marine as opposed to what we do. We build boats. That part's probably pretty obvious. But for most of us, many of us, I'd like to think all of us who work there, the reason we do what we do is because we believe that being on the water makes your life better at the end of the day. And so, you know, we kind of have this ethos that we're enriching lives when they get to spend their time on the water. And now we recognize that not everybody has a job in the marine trades. Not everybody has a job on boats. However, by and large, the experiences that we get to be part of are exactly what Kathy just described. It's people's opportunity where they got to go on some sort of eco tour, or they got to experience some level of research or conservation on a vessel. And that experience of being on a boat is just kind of otherworldly. Life is just easier when you're on a boat. It can be difficult, but it's better when you're on a boat. And so, you know, even though we spend our time usually in a factory with lights, banging and clanging on aluminum, this is what gets us up in the morning. Like, we believe that what we're doing is making a difference. And when we get an opportunity to go on boats, which isn't as often as I like, that day is better than the day before. Being a shipyard, we have a bit of a reputation as boat builders. That's not always a positive one. And one of the things that we sought to do was begin to make cultural change within our company. And we went through this kind of unique process where we actually got everybody together. There's 50 of us that work out there. And we pulled everybody together and we said, what are your values? What's important to you as an individual? Like, how do you want to be known? How do you want to be treated? And we had everybody write down their values, and we had literally 5-gallon buckets of sticky notes that everybody just kind of filled out. It was a quick brainstorming session with everybody in the company. And we ended up taking in all those sticky notes, going into our big aluminum conference table, laying them out everywhere, sifting them into piles. And ultimately what we ended up doing was creating a set of core values where we said, okay, we're known for being a salty bunch here. However, moving forward, these values are going to be part of what we do. They're going to be a part of how we operate, how we treat each other, how we treat our customers, how we treat our vendors. And so if at some point you're interested in taking a tour at BRIX Marine, we certainly welcome people to come out. One of the things you'll see is these core values are represented in shirts, that we have some of our crew wear. We've got these up in our conference room and up at various places throughout the shipyard. Just as a reminder that, hey, no matter how hard today is or how difficult this situation is, we're going to treat each other with respect. We're going to be accountable to one another and to our customers. But we're going to operate with safety in mind, and really just try to live out these core values on a day-to-day basis. So once again, I thought that was worth sharing. The reality is what we do for a living is build boats, and our objective very specifically at BRIX Marine is to build the best welded aluminum catamarans in North America. We don't only build catamarans. Everybody always asks that question. Well, do you do anything else? Yes, we do. We build barges, we build superstructures, we build buoys, we built all sorts of things you can do with aluminum, usually for the marine trades, sometimes even other things, because we specialize in we're a fab shop, at the end of the day. We have all the tools to do that. However, our objective is very specifically in the multi-hull side of the marine business, and we're all welded aluminum. So that's the other thing you'll see when you come. A lot of metal. Go ahead and move to the next slide. So at BRIX, we build boats. We usually have 10 to 15 boats under construction at a time. That's what's physically under construction, and then our backlog, which grows and shrinks, with the market. It's been in a very healthy place over the last 5 years, and the outlook remains very, very strong for us, which is exciting. But we respect and we understand that we're also more than the boats that we build. Being a company of 50 people, there's a whole lot that goes into keeping that place up and running. And so every year we seek to put forward, we call it our high five plan, which is kind of an operational strategic plan for the year that ties into our fiscal budgeting. And we have what we call the BRIX Beacon. It's another thing that you would see or will hear referred to if you spend time out at BRIX Marine with any of us. And that is like, how are we going to achieve our objective? Like, how are we actually going to get there? And we've got kind of these 3 primary areas that we run every goal, every plan, every strategy has to fit somehow into this beacon. And we've got some kind of corny stuff up on the walls with lighthouses, beams of light that kind of attempt to bring some clarity to what the BRIX Beacon is. But ultimately, we believe that we're going to have a competitive advantage and make a difference for our customers and our community. If 1, we're the best place to work. If 2, we're providing the best experience, custom boat experience, which sounds exciting, is exciting, fraught with challenges, perils, I can tell you. And then lastly is, our commitment to continuously improve to deliver the right boat on time and in budget. So those 3 things are, as I mentioned, they're kind of the framework or the foundation for any of the operational goals that we put in place that we kind of work through on an annual cycle. So I'll give you a little bit of history on the company. Again, small community. And we often have people going like, who are you guys? We had no idea we're doing this in Port Angeles. So in 2001, our founder, the entrepreneur who started the company, Josh Armstrong, brought the business, what was Armstrong Marine Inc., from Sydney, British Columbia. So he was a dual citizen, and the company began operating sometime in the early 90s. I don't know exactly when it was incorporated. However, that's really where the pedigree of our boat building began, was in Sydney, across the border. And the reason that move was made is because here in the United States, we have a thing called the Jones Act, and building welded aluminum boats, there was a lot of commercial interest for what we do. So, most of our clientele were small contractors, universities, government agencies, government bodies. And because of the Jones Act, those boats have to be built in the United States in order to operate commercially in the United States. And so being a Canadian boat builder meant he couldn't sell anything to any of those folks who were inquiring here south of the border. So he made the decision to move it here. So in 2001, that's when Armstrong Marine Inc. became part of the Port Angeles community, and we've been here since. A lot happened between 2001 and 2017, but I'm just giving you kind of the highlights. In 2017, Josh sold the business to Byron and Cheryl Bolton, who are the owners of the Brighton Marine Group, the umbrella company that we're part of as BRIX Marine. So in 2017, we made a shift in ownership. When Byron bought the company, what he decided to do was to leave the management team that was in place and were needed to be in place here in Port Angeles, as opposed to what I would refer to as helicoptering in a management group. So there are many of us who are there. I've got what I consider my senior management team that I work with. 4 of us have been with the company for more than 10 years. So we started as Armstrong Marine Inc. and we're part of that transition period, which has been fun. It's been a challenge. The cultural transformation takes time, but we're 6 years into it, and we're having some success. We're enjoying it. So 2017 was a major shift. 2020 was also a big year, and I'm not going to talk about COVID. You all lived through that, but it was a big shift for us because that was the year we decided to rebrand. So up to that point, so it was Armstrong Marine Inc. When we became part of the Brighton Marine Group in 2017, we shifted to Armstrong Marine USA. And then in 2020, we made the decision to rebrand. And there were 2 reasons that drove that. One is the name Armstrong is used in multiple other businesses relating directly to the marine business, both here in Washington as well as far away as Florida. So because of that, we weren't able to brand or trademark anything relating to the name Armstrong. And at that point, we had just received some national recognition for a recent launch that we had done for Scripps University in Southern California. And we really felt like, hey, we probably need to be able to protect our reputation as opposed to continue using the name Armstrong and have others enjoy our reputation as well. So that was the primary driver behind it. And the second was there was some confusion in the market space. Again, small community. The Armstrongs are a small family, and there's another boat building opportunity or business in Port Townsend that was also using that name. And so there was confusion between who was who. And we thought, the easiest thing is, how about we just rebrand? How about we just change our name? So those were the 2 driving factors. And that next slide, please. Yep. And then we always get, Kathy asked me earlier, what is BRIX? Like why BRIX? Where did that come from? So this was a pretty fun process, one that I feel privileged to be part of. I don't know how many people get to be part of a rebranding of an already established business. It was an interesting process. It took months, and we had about every boring boat name you can think of that was kind of thrown out there. So I had my senior team as part of this process. So we had 6 of us who were brainstorming in our evenings and weekends and coming up with concepts, and we had hundreds of names that were all very benign and quite boring. And we ended up going through this one workshop where we had a marketing expert who came to us. They said, what would you never name a boat company? So, that really got the creative juices flowing. And believe it or not, BRIC, as in BRICK, was one of the things that came up. You would never name a company BRIC because BRICs don't float. However, what ended up coming out of that was kind of this little stream of consciousness with the team, and BRICS with an X is actually a scientific measurement. So degrees BRIX are measured in liquid, in solutions, to determine how sweet they are. And this is commonly used in winemaking and brewing, but there are other scientific fields that use it as well. And for some reason, from that point on, BRIX with an X, understanding that background, we were all like, well, there's nothing sweeter than our holes in the water. So, you know, we kind of liked that connotation, but it was uncanny as we went through this list with the team. Every time it was like, well, just give us your top 10. BRIX was on everybody's top 10. And then it was, okay, independently go, let's narrow it down to your top 5. BRIX was on everybody's top 5, all the way down to the top 3. And believe it or not, it was a unique decision when it was like, what is the one that you want? It ended up being BRIX Green. So degrees BRIX are a real thing, and BRIX boats are pretty sweet. So that's where it comes from. That's what it means. So a little bit about the product that we develop. As a custom builder, I mentioned we build a lot of different things. It is very difficult to pare that down and make it really simple. However, after years and years of attempts, I think we've done a pretty good job of taking what can be a very complicated boat buying process, and we've simplified it down to hopefully provide that best experience for customers. So we sell primarily to 3 different markets. Within those markets, the boats can be very, very different, but 3 primary markets: recreational, passenger carrying, and research and conservation. Those are our top 3 markets. So within those markets, we have developed what we call our portfolios, which are kind of a stair-stepped run-up of different hull sizes, superstructure configurations, deck arrangements that can all be customized, but they're great starting points for somebody who thinks they're interested in a boat for any one of those reasons. So we call those portfolios, we've got kind of catchy little names for them. So on the recreational side, it's Rec Pro, which is a combination of the words recreational and professional. And the reason we did that, our legacy is primarily commercial vessels. However, in the last few years, we've seen a major shift towards people requesting a commercially built or professionally built boat for recreational purposes. And so within that, we took our commercial models and we have added some nicer features, some creature comforts, so to speak, some sophistication, I'd like to think. And we've created these kind of luxury recreational vessels in that lineup. So that portfolio we call. On the passenger boat side, this is one of the very broad markets. A passenger boat is anything from a 6-pack charter fishing vessel all the way through to a 49-passenger ferry that operates on a scheduled route, to or from certain locations 24/7. So we fit all of those boats and everything in between into what we call PAX-CAT, PAX, which started as an abbreviation internally on a lot of people's notebooks as how many passengers do you want? Like, well, I need 25. So that would be a 25 PAX boat. And before long, it caught on and we were like, let's just call it what it is. It's PAX-CAT. The first 2 portfolios that I've referred to here are all Catamarans. The next one is Tricky, our lab cat. So this portfolio is used primarily for research, oceanographic exploration, conservation. We sell to many government bodies for this: USGS, NOAA, Army Corps of Engineers, and we also sell them to private operators who use the boats for various means, dredging companies, and then universities in the scientific community. So we call that our lab cat because labs are kind of associated with science and a lot of the work they do, and also catamarans. If you go to our website, you'll find monohulls in our lab cat portfolio. So don't let the name fool you. As I mentioned, we do a lot of different things, primarily catamarans. However, we do build monohulls as well. On the slide that you guys can see, there's 2 portfolios represented that have a dark kind of background on the header. So I differentiated those by color specifically because those are projects that we've taken on for people where we don't necessarily own the intellectual property. We didn't do the design work for all of it. In many cases, we've done much of it. However, it is a shared IP for any of the projects within those portfolios. So on the NIAD side, this is a strategic partner of ours, who designs rigid hull inflatable boats. So these are aluminum hulls with large flotation buoyancy collars around them. You may be familiar with some others in this area who do that. Safe Boats down in Bremerton, Life Proof, a couple of examples. They're primarily professional vessels as well. There is a niche and growing recreational market for that style of boat. However, once again, within that market space, we're typically building passenger boats, patrol boats, pilot boats, and small research vessels. So we work strategically with NIAD for that design. So we have an agreement with them that says if we're going to build a boat that's one hull and has a collar, it'll be a NIAD design. And NIAD's agreement with us is if anybody's interested in one of our designs in North America, send them to BRIX. So it's a nice relationship for us. We've also got a portfolio that we just kind of refer to as designer, and that's kind of a catch-all, to be honest. It just means we're working with an outside architect, an outside designer, and that could be either instigated by us or the customer. In some cases, we will have people who have worked with specific naval architects for long periods of time to design their dream boat, and now they just need somebody to build it. And so we'll get involved at that level. Or it's something that's a little bit outside our bailiwick, so to speak. And so we go out and we seek that third-party expertise for the sake of our customer, and then we develop that project together. And then the last is probably the biggest bucket of all, which is custom. Everything on that list is custom. However, this one kind of captures, like, it's difficult. We don't have an entire portfolio or an entire segment of our designs that we can throw into this. However, we have some very significant projects that fit in here. Paint and maintenance barges for the U.S. Navy, fishnet tenders, which is what should be on that, is what's in that photo. So it's got a very sophisticated scrubbing system that they deploy underwater for scrubbing fish farm nets, small skiffs, custom. Anything else you need, aluminum tanks built or docks or anything that floats made out of metal, we're on it. And we would fit it within that custom portfolio. I do have some other slides. We have more time that go into a little bit more detail if people are interested in seeing specific boat details, but I'm going to move on a little bit here and talk a little bit about the skilled trades that we employ out of BRIX. So to make these boats happen, we subcontract one thing on a regular basis, and that is upholstery. So what you won't hear me talk about, sewing. We did have sewing machines at one point in time, and we just decided to let experts be experts, and we've got some local partners who do a way better job than we do. So we sew with metal instead, with welding torches. So we have a large CNC machine, an 8x30 CNC router table. I'll go into that in a little bit more detail later. So we employ CNC both programming and operating. So we have people doing both things for us on the CNC side and material handling. As you would expect, fabricators and welders, we have many of those. That's kind of the primary driver of the business. There's no boats to build if we're not welding something together. Marine electricians, another trade specifically that we're employing. Marine systems is also one of our departments, and so these are the folks that we rely on for plumbing, mechanical installations. They also, so many things are moving towards digital and electronic controls. They're pretty decent electricians as needed as well. And then finally, what we refer to internally as our finish technicians. These are the folks that are many of whom come out of kind of traditional carpenter trades. So these are folks that handle our joinery. So they're building all of our internal cabinets, our walls, our ceilings, any of the trim. they're installing decking, and they also handle our coatings, and they're kind of like hardware specialists. So they'll do any of the coatings that we're doing on the boat. So we do some painting on the interiors. We commonly bottom paint, and then they also handle a lot of our special stainless steel hardware closures. So any of the custom built hatches, doors, deck penetrations, they help fit those out with the actual hardware that will be used to hinge or actuate them. Within each one of those, we have, you'll see a pyramid up on that slide that indicates level 1, 2, 3. So a number of years ago, one of the things we felt was really critical, if we were going to kind of throw the gauntlet down of being the best employer, being the best place to work, we needed to create career paths for people. We didn't want them to feel like you came here, you got a job, and good luck with the rest of your life kind of thing. So we took some time, and every single one of these trades, we have developed what we refer to internally as a skills matrix. And it very specifically details out what kinds of tools you need to be capable of using within each one of those levels, as well as what you'll be doing on the boats by description. And so what we were able to do with that was kind of give people a little bit of runway, a line of sight on where we were committed to training them, as well as where they could go within that specific trade. So that's also tied to a wage matrix. And so we're able to also give people the opportunity to ultimately make more money by skilling up in specific trades that we're committed to then teaching and training internally. And one of the challenges I'll talk about here in a bit is definitely that workforce development, skill development. And those are programs that we're continually working on developing, honing, and improving internally. And honestly, that's meant a lot to our crew, and it's made a big difference in terms of employee retention. We've slowly seen our average tenure is growing. In fact, we just celebrated a 20-year anniversary fairly within the year. So that was somebody who started pushing the broom back in, I think, 2020 or 2002. And has stuck with us, and he is now actually one of our key supervisors, and a pretty heavy hitter within the shop. And we're excited to be able to offer that opportunity. Every single one of our supervisors is currently in that role because they were promoted to it from within. And in many cases, the supervisor they replaced is also still with us. And so that's pretty exciting. So we're constantly, as we're growing, we're looking for opportunities to create kind of that vertical opportunity for people within the business. Slide. So, what are the challenges that we face here in Port Angeles? There's a lot of them. Like, I could probably fill many slides and really bore a lot of you with a lot of details. The reality is space, location, and workforce development. Okay, those are the three big things that we deal with BRIX. So I say space because it's limited. Like, we have a very specific shop. We operate in the big blue buildings out there. So we have 3 facilities with a set square footage and certain tools that we use within those. And what we have found, in fact, if you came out for a tour anytime soon, you'll see like the size of the boats just keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And we are limited into what we can produce in length and in beam. However, just the average size is continually growing. When I started with the company, 12-year longer material after that oxidization takes place. So the power to weight is the advantage, and the other is that it's a fabricated shape. We don't use molds, which means the world is your oyster in terms of creating. If it can be manipulated and bent and welded and cut and formed, it can be built, and we aren't limited by molds. And then, painting, we do occasionally. We have seen a huge growth in the vinyl wrapping industry. And so many of the boats that you'll see in the harbor here that come from us will have some sort of color on them now. And most of the time, that's actually a skin. It's a vinyl wrap, self-adhesive wrap that's put on it, which is comparable to paint in the look, but much less expensive.
off the space. Leave it off the space. Probably one we've had to unfortunately.
Mhm.
How important is college program for moving technologies.
Yeah, so we've worked, we worked with a few folks up there with the new program that they're putting in place to kind of help detail it at the beginning, or help outline it, not detail it, for what kinds of trainings, you know, could be available to people. And we're really excited to see that get off the ground. And we're looking forward to both having new employees come out of there, as well as us putting employees into the system. We're excited. We see huge potential there, upskilling this whole area.
One more question. Oh,
His hand did go up first.
I know, yeah.
I would love to do a tour if anybody else is interested.
Please do. Come get a card for me. You guys are welcome to reach out. Kathy also has Cordelia's information, so between us, we'll.
I realize design can take all sorts of time, and the build is quite variable. From get the design to kind of build the boat, how long does it take to really?
6 to 8 months is usually the construction period, and the design is anywhere from 30 to 90 days, depending on the complexity.
Anybody else would like to do a tour, let me know. I'm interested also.
We can do large groups, like if it's just 1 or 2 people, that's fine. If we're doing large groups, we try to plan it for a Friday afternoon. Our crews work 4-10 schedules, so we only have 1 crew in there on Friday, so it's a little quieter, a little easier to move around, but we can accommodate large groups.
Gary, are you able to stay after for a couple more questions, just for the sake of time? We do have people that have to get to work.
Okay.
So are you okay, Norm,
Oh,
and Jim, to stay after? Okay, sorry to interrupt you.